Again, if you are tasked to construct an FDT given this data consisting of scores of 30 students in physics exam, the first thing you should do is to determine the range. But what is range anyway? Range is the difference between the largest value and smallest value in the data set. Going back to the data, we can see that the largest value or score is 95 and the smallest value or score is 52. Therefore, 95 minus 52 will give you 43. Therefore, 43 is the range. After getting the range, you need to determine next the class interval. In addition to the previous definition, class interval is also known as the number of categories of equal length, and it depends on you on how many categories or groups you wanted to include in your table. In most cases, the ideal number of class interval is between 5 and 15. In our case, we can decide 9 groups in our class interval. In this step, you will now see the reason why we chose 9 groups in a class interval, because we will now determine the class size or the length of class intervals. To get this, simply divide the range by the chosen number of class interval. 43 as the range divided by 9 classes is equal to 4.78. Round it off and it will give you 5. Again, the purpose of class size is to group the data with equal lengths in the class intervals. As an application, you need to count 5 starting from 52, 53, 54, 55, then 56. And you will get the first group in your class interval, which is 52 to 56. Then another group again. Filling the class boundary. Class boundary contains lower class boundary or LCB and upper class boundary or UCB. To establish the class boundaries, you need to subtract 0.5 to the lower class limit to get the lower class boundary. For instance, 52 minus 0.5 will give you 51.5 as your lower class boundary. To get the upper class boundary, add 0.5 to the upper class limit. For instance, 56 plus 0.5 will give you 56.5 as your upper class boundary. The same process with other class intervals. Determine the class frequency. To do this, simply count how many times a data value for each interval appear in the data. For instance, the class frequency for class interval 52 to 56 is 4 because there are only 4 scores found in the data that could fit to the given boundaries. Determine the class mark. This can be attained through this formula. Class mark is equal to lower class limit plus upper class limit divided by 2. For instance, the total of the class interval 52 and 56 is 108 divided by 2, and the class mark will be 54. The same process with other class intervals.